You know, the other thing that was interesting, and I hope this isn't too inside baseball, watching the legislation come about. Sometimes the wheels of justice move pretty slowly. You folks in the House and the Senate and this family and the leadership really moved very swiftly. I don't remember seeing a piece of legislation that came about, was entered into law, signed by the governor so swiftly as this particular Colin Foote Act.
That's true, and I'm glad you mentioned that the Foote family was involved. That legislation probably went through several drafts. And you know, when we make a law, we have to be very careful because one word can make a big difference one way or the other. So we really have to ensure that everything's proper. And you know, they channeled their grief into action to try to make Rhode Island a better state and make our roads safer. And it was our duty to make sure that that happened, and we did it very quickly.
You know, I can't speak for them, but maybe in a way it was therapeutic. You know, it was the cathartic process, the dealing with their problem, their terrible tragedy. I mean, most of us probably, when that accident occurred and we read about it in the newspaper, went, oh boy, how sad, you know, another terrible traffic accident. This family moved into action.
Yep. They
got a hold of folks like you, and then the mechanism of drafting the legislation and getting it approved by both sides of the building and signed by the governor, it was done very, very swiftly.
It's certainly a memory that will last with me, having the Foote family in my office and having having to discuss legislation about something that was so personal and tragic to them, and to see their courage was really inspiring.
How tough was the last session? We know that Rhode Island, like most states in the Union, were facing tough budget challenges. We got a budget done. We had some income tax reform, which hadn't happened in 40 years. And seemingly the state has sent a message that we're going to become more small business friendly. Give us your take on 2010. How did things play out for you? And give our audience an overview of the session that just ended a couple of months ago.
That was a very good summary of it. We took a very challenging situation and tried to make the best of it. We had several $100 million gap, and as you know, we have to balance our budget. We did it without raising taxes. And there's a lot of advocates out there who the answer to every problem is just raise taxes and everything will be okay. And you know, that's some of the action that has got us into the situation we're in, where we're known to be a very high tax state, not business friendly. We cut our income tax. We went from the 46th on the list of states, 46th to like 25th in 1 year. That's a huge jump. That tells America that we want you to come here and we're not going to stick our hands deeper into your pocket every year. We have to make these tough policy issues. We did that with great income tax reform, in which 80% of Rhode Islanders are either paying less or the same amount that they paid before. And with that structure moving up almost to 25th on the nationally, I think was a tremendous accomplishment.
You know, before these changes went into place, I saw an NBC poll that ranked Rhode Island 49th in ease of doing business, only ahead of Alaska, which was 50th. And obviously, the future in terms of creating jobs lies with small business. We'd certainly welcome a big, manufacturing enterprise or some big company to locate here or expand here, not to discount that, but we really have to embrace small business.
60% of Rhode Islanders work in small business. We need to send a message to the small business community, not only in Rhode Island, but around the country, that Rhode Island's a friendly place to do business, that Rhode Island is a place where you can expand and you can grow, and government's not going to be an obstacle, government's going to be a friend. And we're starting down that path. We had some small business reform this year, as you mentioned, and we need to keep our focus on that, because that's where our economy can be strengthened, and that's where it can sustain itself through further difficult times.
You are talking to a lot of your constituents in South County. You're hearing what they have to say at the doorstep, at community group meetings, etc. I heard just this morning nationally that consumer confidence is down in America, ticked down a little bit, which for the economy is not a good indicator as of today. What are the folks telling you that you visit with in South County? What are some of the things they're expressing to you that is of concern to them?
What we've just been talking about. Nobody wants to see their taxes go up. And unfortunately, in years past, that was the answer. And you talk about some of the special interest groups and whatnot that have some, that have a presence here in the building. And raising taxes, it sounds good sometimes because you don't have to cut programs or cut spending. But once government keeps on sticking their hand deeper and deeper into your pocket, people want change. After a while, the only thing left is the change in the taxpayer's pocket. We need to be cognizant of that and start moving it back in the other direction, and let Rhode Islanders keep more of the money that they earn so that they can invest it in our economy and invest it in their businesses.
And when you hear from special interest, I guess the difficult thing, if you're a legislator, is that you have to realize that that special interest group only has their special interest at heart. Not only are you representing South County, but you represent the entire state, and you chair a very important committee. And again, that must be, that must be sometimes a daunting task to make those differentiations.
You have to keep in mind who you represent. And like my area is a wonderful area in South County. And you can't really be beholden to any one particular group 100% of the times. And that's part of the government process, and everybody knows that. What's sometimes frustrating is that when you have people up here who are beholden to one particular group or one particular viewpoint 100% of the times, that's doing, I think, a disservice to their representation and things that we try to do up here to benefit the whole state.
I'll tell you what, people sometimes don't understand the kind of hours that the men and women here at the General Assembly put in addition to session and to the actual work that you do inside the chamber. But if you had to represent a part of Rhode Island, boy, I have to tell you, Chairman, I'm a huge fan of South County. I spend a lot of free time in your area because it has to be one of the most spectacular places, not just in Rhode Island, but maybe in the United States. That is just such an exquisite part of our country.
Thank you, Dave. I've lived there my entire life. So, and it's the same in a lot of ways as I remember growing up. We have nice schools, good family structure, beautiful scenic beaches and coastline, but also a very hardworking. It's a place where hardworking individuals live. It's a good representation of all the best that Rhode Island has to offer, and it's been my honor to represent that area now that they've reelected me over and over again.
Well, Chairman, I live in Pawtucket, and I get in my car, and in 40 minutes, get down there to Narragansett, some of the most spectacular coastline, great shops and eateries, and it's absolutely magnificent. And I can get there, and I drive down, and I say, my goodness, this is in my backyard. This is 40 minutes from my home. Now, it's a little different.
Now, in Rhode Island, sometimes they have to stop halfway for a rest stop.
Right, pack a lunch.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, it's just absolutely terrific to so quickly get to a recreation area like Narragansett. It had to be terrific growing up there.
It's fantastic, and I still, it's a place where a lot of people stay, don't move away from. So I bump into people I've grown up with my whole life, and their families and their parents, and now their children, and it really is. It's a fantastic place to live in, and we want to keep it that way.
Now, I don't know if you would know this off the top of your head, but I'm just a little curious, because it is such a great recreation area with some great real estate. Do you have any idea as to how many people just come to like Narragansett that are maybe just seasonal residents, maybe even live in another state, or maybe live in another part of the state and have a summer home or a recreational home there? Do you have any feel for that?
The population almost triples in the summertime in Narragansett due to the rental activity and the turnover of some of the rental houses. It goes from somewhere like 15,000 or so to like 50,000 or more. It's a very unique place in that we have the summer tourism and the summer relaxation mode that's down there. And in the winter, turns very quickly into a college setting, a university. It's a university town with URI, right down the road. A lot of the students rent their homes in the area. So it changes its character rather quickly, and we have to keep our eye on that from the government side to not forget about the full-time residents that were really there to make sure that their quality of life remains as I remember it growing up.
I was having breakfast the other morning at Phil's, and I'm talking to a gentleman, just struck up a conversation. He was a school teacher, and he lived in Bonnet Shores. And he was lamenting all of the tourist traffic and all of the tourism, people like me, essentially. And I said, if people didn't like it, if it wasn't popular, they wouldn't be here. And maybe your real estate values can hold or go up because it is such a high demand area. So many people like it. And I got him to take pause for a moment, but the locals sometimes it's a little frustrated because traffic can get a little busy at times, a little hectic at times.
Well, it's all relative. Traffic in Rhode Island is compared to other places. We have, certainly in the tourist areas, it backs up a little bit, but it's well worth the wait. But Phil, you bring up Phil's, it's a great example. Kevin who owns Phil's, just bought the building. He wants to expand it. He's trying to get a beer and wine license. And that's the type of individual that we need to pay attention to up here at the State House, who wants to invest in Rhode Island. It's on historic Main Street. It's a wonderful place. That's right in the middle of my area.
And that's a classic small business.
And that's a classic small business. And that's the type of individual and that's the type of situation that we want to see occurring in Rhode Island. And Phil's is a classic example of that.
Chairman, also this past session, you brought a most interesting guest here to the State House. I'll admit, I was an O.J. Simpson trial junkie. I watched everything I could during that trial. You brought in the victim's sister, Denise Brown. Tell our viewers about that.
She was giving a presentation and doing some fundraising and give some education on spousal abuse. And the color that they use is purple. So we lit the State House dome purple. Denise Brown came in, and I was happy to receive her here in the State House and present her to the House of Representatives to really bring awareness to a situation that is tragic around our country, and she lived it firsthand, unfortunately, with everybody knows what happened to her sister. So we do a lot of work with victims groups like domestic violence victims and other victims across the state. And all of those bills do come through the Judiciary Committee. So I had a little more interaction than most would and seeing really the ramifications and the importance of having not only the laws to protect people, but also the services so that victims have a place to go.
I didn't get to meet her that day that she was here, but we were talking about the Foots earlier, that family.
Yes.
The Browns and the Goldmans really have dedicated their life
certainly
to people that have been victims of this sort of violence. You must commend their commitment and dedication to this. I've only seen her interviewed on television. She strikes me as being pretty articulate. What was she like personally?
Very personable. She's a great spokesperson and a great ambassador to go around to bring to light, the real seriousness of domestic abuse. And she was very accessible. I know she made several appearances around the state, and she really was a great ambassador for her, and she does a great job.
Chairman Caprio, thanks a million for joining us today. You're always an interesting guest. I wish you and your entire family the very best. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Dave.
And most importantly, thanks to you for watching. It's all because of you that we're able to continue doing this, and we hope we give you a little insight as to what's going on inside this historic building, the Rhode Island State House. My name is Dave Barber, and remember, you heard it straight from the Gavel.